Afternoon. Thank you for taking the time today to join us for our first project operations roundtable hosted by proMX. And today we're joined by a few of my colleagues, Antti, who's a Microsoft Business Applications MVP and advisor, co-founder of Forever Forward, Sebastian, product manager for our ISV solutions division, and a project operations expert, currently working with us here at proMX. Kuldeep, who's our CEO of our India subsidiary, also a Microsoft Business Applications MVP. Manuel Hanak, who's Director of Pre-Sales and a Solution Architect for Dynamics 365, covering project operations and also some of the other add-ons for Microsoft Dynamics. And Daniel Bach, Head of Research and Development here at proMX. So all seasoned pros within the industry. And so we'd like to spend some time today having a discussion with them, asking them questions about their theory and background on the product. And so I'd like to kick off and share my screen. I'd like to kick off with my first question. So to you, what is your personal favorite feature inside of project operations? And I think I'll get started with Manuel, and then we can pass it around the table.
Hello, first of all, it's good to start. So I'm pretty free to answer that. There's no specific feature which is my personal favorite. So for me, it's more the end-to-end integrated process throughout the whole system. So from time tracking over creation of project, invoicing. So at the end, you can cover the whole process inside, and there are many possibilities to adapt those processes finally to the customer needs. So there are some limitations within, but there are many ways to adopt those.
That's a bit of a cheat answer, really, but I'll take it.
Okay.
How about yourself, Kuldeep?
Yes. Well, personally, I feel PSA, when it was existing, invoicing was not that great a feature. When they did an integration with F&O to bring in the invoicing piece, that is one of the piece that I love more, and when project operations has come in place.
Yeah, that's nice. Antti, how about yourself?
Hey everyone. So yeah, that's an interesting question. So kind of which one to pick. So I've kind of ironically always been intrigued by how financial data moves in project operations. Ironically, because I'm not a financial consultant, but somehow that flow of what we call actuals and that flow of both cost and our revenue, how that flows in the product from the very beginning to the very end, and being in invoicing in my mind, sort of that flow has always fascinated me, primarily because it's probably one of the hardest areas of the product to kind of understand the architecture behind that.
Yeah, that's interesting. Myself, primarily from like a CE background, CRM, I always tried to stay away from the financial data. It really felt like it was confusing, and I'm terrible at maths. But that's interesting. That's an area that you like of the product, and you really like to get your head around. That's cool. How about yourself, Daniel?
Yeah, I can also jump on what was said, but next to this, I'm a big fan of the not to exceed limit. This was a big issue in the PSA. When project manager were not working in a very good way, they simply approved too many actuals and you were writing wrong invoices. So this is a really nice feature.
Yeah, I agree. Sebastian?
Yeah, basically everything was already said, or a lot of was already said. So I jump on the cheap train with Manuel. So this whole integration set thing. So I really like it how like this huge finance operations world then coming to this Microsoft Dynamics platform. So like pointing out more opportunities for customers who are using F&O, or also for CE customers who plan to use F&O, so that this comes a bit together, and as well getting like the project for the web experience into Dynamics, so I don't need to jump around or something. I don't need to like change the browsers or so, or I need 3 different tools so I can just work in a steady workflow. I think that's one of my favorites here.
Cool. Well, thanks for that. So I do have another question. Hopefully it's a bit more, Manuel can't dodge this one, or you, Sebastian. How do you make the best out of project operations for your daily work around planning, time tracking?
Yeah.
How can you
so
work with those areas specifically?
Yeah, so actually we're using for like on a company wise, we're using time tracking. But like for my real daily work, so planning the next steps in development, for example. So when we go on and customize something or develop something for a customer in terms of the ISV development, or we have some certain task we need to order and bring into like a timeline. I'm personally using the project for web capabilities there. It's just super easy to add there the resources, to add there the certain tasks, to create the dependencies. And at the end, I can also like use that bucket feature. And I think I'm like one of like 10 people who's using that. Everyone I'm talking to, like no one is using that, but I really like that to like, for example, push down priorities or so, or to group that in certain technologies I need. And so I really can see from product development side as well, what do we need, and what is our task for next weeks, and perhaps as well where are our limitations. For example, we cannot just like have 60 DevOps items and 95 of them, 59 of them are then assigned to like one resource, and it's like this is the only C# developer. So I can argue that we perhaps need 2 or 3 more C# developers. And yeah, it's just a very easy tool, and I can also share like everything I do there with colleagues. That's also very nice. So, for example, when we work together with our consultants for the customer projects, they can directly have access to it and see basically live what I'm doing there and how's the progress also as well. So I can also track, and they don't need to use DevOps. They don't need to talk to developers. They can just go there and see that their feature they're waiting. This is ready and is coming with the next deployment or so. Or they see that the next thing is already like 60-70% done and will come soon. So that's a very nice thing. Yeah.
Cool.
But also,
That's nice.
it's also a downside when Manuel has some access to that and then uses that for presentations, and then your whole plan is like completely destroyed. Already happened.
I would say not destroyed. I would say optimized.
Optimized. Okay. Sure. Sorry. Sorry to get this wrong.
That's nice. Do you use the buckets as a Kanban board, or is it just for groupings of the tasks?
So I use it as like grouping. So you can also use it as a Kanban board, for example. So you're pretty free in order to rename and name the buckets which are there. You have out of the box, you have one bucket per default where like all the tasks are stored there. But you can also arrange that and do whatever you want basically with it. So you can, for example, also use it as a progress diagram, as you know. So you can also create those different buckets and give it a faces name. For me, it's mostly personally to use it with like priorities or technology wise, so that I know, for example, it's JavaScript development or plugin development, something like this. Yeah, but it's really widely free to use.
Yeah, nice. Do you use project operations in your day-to-day, Daniel?
Yeah, I'm using it. One of my favorite features, it's not brand new, it was also existing in PSA, is the connectivity with the Exchange calendar. So I really use because everything's stored in my calendar, so I have the time entries directly in place. But the biggest benefit from project operations is, from my perspective, for controlling reasons, the existing Power BI templates. With PSA, this was really hard. The existing templates were based on the data export service, so you need to set up Azure, have an Azure SQL in place, data export services, and then you could use a hard-coded SQL template. And right now, while Project Online is also stored on Dataverse and Project Operations is CE and also Dataverse, Microsoft provided all the nice Power BI templates. So you do not need to start from scratch when you want to create nice controlling dashboards, creating forecasts, and maybe put in some machine learning as well. So it's really, really nice that we have this as a direct starting point.
Yeah, nice. Cool. Antti, do you use project operations in your day-to-day?
I do. I think my use of project operations is probably more than it's a bit different than sort of like a consultant logging time or a basic user using it for their project tracking or their time tracking. I think my day-to-day in project operations is actually more around advising other people, and especially customers in how project operations should be used. So I'd say that my day-to-day is more around really in deep dive in the system and giving advisory to clients and customers on how to use it.
Nice. Cool. Kuldeep, are you utilizing project operations at the proMX India?
We are soon planning to use it. As of now, it's in the implementation phase. For sure, we're going to be using it. Some of the things that I like about project operations is they have drastically improved how the tasks are managed. We used to have it was difficult to create tasks in PSA, whereas management of tasks and project operations has drastically improved with Kanban board in place, like already spoken about. The buckets are in place. Time tracking has been drastically improved. Again, I already said that there is a nice integration with F&O piece that I will definitely make use of in order to not integrate a third-party tools for invoicing. Bringing them back in, the taxations and all was very difficult to manage, which can be taken care of. And one of the asks from one of the customers, not for my use, but maybe split billing is quite used by one of the customers. That is also one of my favorites.
Cool. Oh, nice. Manuel, apart from messing up Sebastian's projects in the project operations, do you have much use of it?
Yeah, so I would like to answer this question from another side. So not for my daily usage. So I need to often set up environment for presentations to prepare them for customer scenarios. So one advice or one point would be keep it as simple as possible. And this is why I normally do not use Sebastian projects, because they are too complex. You need to find your own way how to set up, how to structure your project plan that you really can cover the end-to-end process I mentioned before. So really to track your actuals, also time and convert your actuals, put it on invoices, use split billing functionalities like Kuldeep mentioned. So there are many ways to speeden up your work inside of project operations to produce less data as needed. And to have from reporting capability, reporting functionality, you have the full picture available afterwards. So my best out of my daily work is keep it simple as possible, as complex as needed from a project management perspective, what you track against a project and how you track it, finally. Often the point is that the people like to have here extensive reporting on many stuff, but honestly, if you're asking how often do you use that reporting, this answer is once a month or 2 months. So why then we track in 15 minutes intervals? So for time, for example, so it's not needed. There are many ways to speeden up your daily work.
Yeah, interesting. Cool. Yeah, so obviously we're talking about,
If not taking, I'm sorry to interrupt, but one more thing that I just forgot is the schedule board aspect, which is beautifully done in project operations. They have drastically improved the user interface of it. I guess it's still in preview, but then it'll soon come out as public availability, general availability. It's very good. The performance is much better than it was before. And yeah, hopefully people will like it.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Yeah, I like it. It does look like it's going to be a nice upgrade. Yeah, so we're also talking about project operations and some of the new features and functionality that are coming with it. One of them recently has been the schedule API or task API. And so obviously with the upgrade from PSA to project operations, there was a bit of a limitation around the new product. So with the release of the new API, what sort of gaps does that close in some of the areas that were lacking in project operations compared to PSA? Manuel, you finished, you can start.
Task API is honestly not really my topic.
No.
I think there are people in that round which have much more knowledge about it, but only from my perspective. We have now possibility to leverage the project for web capabilities inside of project operations again, to use the schedule rules and engines in the background to trigger processes, which was in the beginning not possible, and this was a huge limitation. Finally, this now this wall is broken down, and now we can again think bigger from a customization perspective, from an adoption of the processes. But from a technical perspective, I would really keep it on that high level, like I mentioned it, and the technical answer I would hand over to Antti, to Daniel, Kuldeep. They are much deeper in that topic than me. I need only to explain it. I don't need to know the exact technical way how it's working in the end.
Yeah, that's for these guys. So yeah, Antti, have you been working much with the schedule API?
Yeah, I've been actually using it pretty intensely and extensively, to be honest. Primarily in low code, which has been an interesting, effort to compare to the easiness that would be at hand through C#. I think like from a requirement and a functional point of view, the schedule APIs solve an immense number of real world problems. To give some examples, basic project templating is one thing that we're able to achieve through the schedule APIs in a more robust manner. And then we have, specific tie-ins to the other first-party applications like field service. If we have a combined deployment of field service and project operations, how those two tools work together, and how we have to reflect tasks to things like work order service tasks, or how we need to possibly create tasks from change orders or things like these. So it helps immensely. There's not been, I don't think, a single project that I've done that would not have required programmatic creation of something around a project. So it's of huge help for sure.
Excellent. Have you come across any limitations, or how has your work been going using it in a low code environment? Are you using Power Automate?
Yes, so I am using Power Automate, and it is in preview, so there definitely are some limitations still. Yeah. It is a fully flexed pro code experience, to be honest. So it's when I build something in low code for task APIs or schedule APIs, in a day a developer will build the same in 30 minutes to an hour. So so there's a huge difference in that sense.
Interesting. Sebastian, have you been working with the schedule API from an ISV perspective?
Yes, so we do have on our portfolio certain products which are using the API or like were required for the API. There was, in fact, in the beginning of the project operations launch, the issue that those products were not working anymore because of the limitations coming with. And now with the API, we have more chances, and we have just more options to make these products working again. In particular, I can give an example we have a multi-Gantt application. So that uses the project and everything what is related to that project tasks and resource assignments, project team members, and can display like more than one project in your project plan, and you can make changes there, you can edit, you can create new tasks, you can assign your resources, you can play around with the bars and the chart overview, all this stuff. And this was highly limited with the or without the task API, to be honest. And now with that coming to or came to project variations in the April release, it really gives us the opportunity to kind of rework our application and work with that. Also, it works in a good way that we can trigger it pretty easy. So basically, from a technical perspective, you're creating an operation set that gets sent to the API, and the API basically does the work for you. The only little thing you need to ensure is that the data you're sending to it is kind of correct. The validation from your side is required, or from the ISV product side here is required, and then basically you can already use it and you can trigger to it. Yeah, this brings a good benefit for us again, basically, because we lost some functionality when we see the PSA product, for example, and now the PO product. So we gained some functionality back, of course, combined with some additional development. I hope as well that those, as Antti mentioned, that's still in preview. I hope there's more functionality coming to it, and also it's getting more stabilized in the future. And yeah, there are some limitations we are still facing, but I think we can work around that at the moment. And I think for long term, a lot of customers and also projects we are driving will really benefit from that. So as Antti already mentioned, there's like not so much projects where they're using project and project task relationships as they are out of the box. So there's a lot of customization around that. And I think the API just gives the system implementer and the consultants and the developers just more options again, which is important for the platform.
Yeah, certainly, I agree. Cool, thanks. Daniel, have you worked with the custom API or the schedule API?
Yeah, heavily together with the team from Microsoft. The schedule API is closing the gap for all the partners and ISV. And I would also say it's completing project operations as a product. Before, easily spoken, we have locked entities, so you had no chance to create any project tasks or doing project team members, assignments and contours and so on. And only with the task API, this is possible right now. And as an easy example, this also opens the window for data migration and integration scenarios.
Yep.
In the previous environment, we had a CE and data migration. You simply took a CSV or Excel file and imported it. This simply will not work with project operations. So you need to use the scheduling API, which will validate all the tasks, the dependencies, the dates, and all what goes around the planning of the project. Validates the data and only accept valid data. So for data migration and integration, this really closed the gap to use it.
Yeah, excellent. Cool. Kuldeep, have you worked with the schedule API, or do you have any customer scenarios that you've been able to address with the new update?
Certainly, Matt, as you know, there is one of the customers that is desiring to do a lot with project tasks. And as we all know, as we hear from Antti, Sebastian, Daniel, the crude operations were blocked in project operations to perform some of the entities in project operations. With scheduling API, we could actually perform those operations on project tasks, do certain customizations that the clients wanted on project tasks. That is one. Of course, there are certain limitations that they are having. Like one of them that I faced was when we were copying a project tasks from one of the project to other project, the sequence of the tasks was shifting up and down. And of course, they have been fixed, but they are still yet to release it out. So yeah, it's a boon, I must say, to the project operations team, but it's not, of course, a low code thing. You need to have a coding experience to use scheduling APIs, all what I can say.
Yeah. Cool. No, thanks for that, guys. It's good, interesting stuff. So this is a bit of a loaded question. What are the pros and cons in the resource management area? Kuldeep, I know you've been working on that recently. What would you say you like and are not a fan of in the resource management, resource scheduling area?
Yeah, as I said, there's not much difference as it was in PSA versus what it is available in project operations. Certainly, they have drastically improved the user experience as to giving a beautiful UI. There are certain customizations which are directly available on the screen itself. You can customize how the look and feel should come up. It's of course made more faster to improvise on the performance front. And yeah, I mean, that's all. Rest, I guess there is not much difference between what PSA had and versus what project operations has.
Yeah. How about yourself, Manuel?
Yeah, so when we take a look into the resource management area, I think we have starting from a project level, we have many possibilities, starting with the assignments of the team members to tasks, creating the resource requirements out of it, the resource requests. So there are many steps you can take to enrich the information you generate in the project plan finally. This part is pretty well solved inside of the product. So you can get really, so this decentralized or centralized approach, those are really well covered from my point of view. But the point is where it feels a little bit not really good is when it comes to the schedule board, like Kuldeep mentioned already. So if I'm referring now to the old version, which is still the per default activated one. So it is this part is more optimized in the direction for the daily intraday booking to manage those. And there it's working pretty well. But if you're looking from a project perspective where you normally have your long running task with huge assignments, then it can be pretty slow to book a resource over 3 months through a single project. But this part as well is working. If everything is setting up fine, then you have no differences in between the book time and the assignments, so then this can be handled with setting it up with correct data. But to adopt your bookings afterwards is a pretty hard job. So the initial booking is solved pretty well inside of the product. But then if you try, okay, I need now to change the substitute resource or to book additional time to a resource, then the whole process is not supported finally. Yes, you can do it in the schedule board. You can directly modify a booking, but this is not a single step to take. There are many steps you need to take to make it in a proper way and to refer to it. The reconciliation, what is from Microsoft side intended to solve or to fill this gap finally, is only working if you look on the extend booking, but to extend the booking of a specific resource, but not to decrease it finally, or to distribute it over several time in the future. I really want one customer situation where it was really pragmatic way to target this issue without spending really huge effort and time into customization. They just delete all bookings with the schedule board, then go back to the reconciliation view and extend the booking to let the system generate the whole set on bookings in a new way. And this is how they adopt on a weekly basis the association of bookings and keep them sync with the assignments of the project task. But it's not like it is intended. So there is room for improvement.
Yeah, I agree, certainly. Antti, have you come across similar issues in your projects around the schedule board?
Yeah, I mean, definitely echoing a lot what Manuel said. So with power comes responsibility. I guess that could be like a cheeky way of saying it. Granularity in bookings is good. So that's definitely the pro. There is there is a lot of possibilities when it comes to really, really granular bookings and detailed bookings. The con of that is the same thing, ironically. That increases the time spent and the effort of both resource management managers and project managers extensively in the product and in that process. So if we kind of think of a simple example, if we think of some of the I call them sister products like field service again. If we think of the kind of the logic in which we schedule in field service, we have an incident. We have something's broken, and we go to a customer's site, and we have a set of tasks that we do at a customer's site, which would be called in field service work order service tasks. So what we do is we book a technician to go and handle something. Whereas in project operations, what we do is we, book that person on a project, a long-running project, and then we're also doing, granular assignments, which are tasks, which you could equate to those work order service tasks. So the level of detail is in professional services is more detailed, and with that you get natural scenarios like, hey, we have consultants that work from 8 to 12 3 days a week, and then we have someone who works in India from 8 to 5. So how do we really plan that contour on a long running project? And we can do that, but it definitely adds to complexity, and it adds to the amount of time that we have to work in the application to make that work. So I think that's sort of one of the cons.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, and that's one of the issues we see quite regularly on projects. Sebastian, have you done anything from an ISV perspective around booking resources to projects and extending?
Yeah. So basically, I have to agree what Antti says. Sometimes for some scenarios, the scheduling board more feels like the hammer to your screw, and you can do a lot of things there, but it's just not fitting to some use cases. Also, just maybe a recommendation, what Kuldeep already said, if some of the attendees are using scheduling board today, go there and check if you can enable the new previewed version, because this is just like another world. It's just much more better. From ISV perspective, we're more likely using the data. So we are not making the wheel round again. So we're not re-implementing resource planning, because if the schedule board is set up very nice in a good way and it fits to the customer scenario, we as an ISV, we don't have that much power that we can do something that does the same way or does the same operation in the same way. So we are more likely using the data. We are building them up in, for example, PCF controls, where we're displaying the data, and we're displaying, for example, more shrinked data. So for example, the project manager can see, I want to plan Kuldeep and Daniel for my project in the next weeks, and then I have an overview that they are available, or they're booked, or on vacation, or whatever. They're just not there, and they can see the differences in a nicer overview. So this is mainly what we're using. So we are extracting the data, which is there for a lot, and we are using the data to push this to the project manager in a more easier or more user-friendly way than it is. So they don't really have to work with the scheduling board.
Yep.
Of course they can, but they still benefit from the data the booking and resource planning generates.
Okay, cool. That sounds interesting. Looks nice. Cool. Daniel, how about yourself? Have you done much with the resource management? Have you tried the new schedule board?
Of course I did. It's really awesome, based on PCF. So as a short background, Microsoft adopted the field service schedule board, and after a long time they mentioned to re-engineer it fully. So now we get a nice PCF-based schedule board. And about the pros for the resource management, this is also what I can highlight: the integration to the unified resource scheduling. So I can also, as a as a manager in the company, I can also see my sales team. I can see my support team together with the project team. So I immediately see what's going on. But as a big con, I can also say like it's very hard. It's good for static data. It has big issue with dynamic data. If you have to shift tasks around, if you have to shift your employees. And the biggest issue, what we already see in the customer side, is when you have dynamic working time models. So when you have a flexible working time, you say like, okay, Monday, Tuesday, I work 10 hours and the rest of the week I reduce it. It will simply not work with the scheduling. So you need to create some working time calendars based on average to have a good calculation.
Yeah.
And also right now, the limitation of editing contours, but this also was announced by Microsoft that they address it in the next updates.
Okay.
So
Cool.
I wait for this one.
Yep. Yep. Some good updates coming down. Cool. Thanks for your input, everyone. That was great. Yeah, we have a couple of questions here from the audience. Feel free to jump in. So one of the scenarios we have here is we have a team of 50 consultants, but we are not planning at the task level. We need to assign resources for X hours a week without knowing when the work will be done. Consultants are planning their daily assignments based on their global assignment. Is there an easy way to achieve this with project operations?
Sebastian, I think this is exactly what you mentioned, how to shrink the data and how you approach this in your resource planning add-on. Finally,
yeah, it's similar. Sorry to interrupt. It's similar, but I think in that case, the resource is really picking their work, right? So at least as I would understand. So basically,
the detail work. So you have an assignment. You work for project A for 20 hours that week, and if you start work, you taking a look into your schedule, what needs to be done in that week, and then you're planning your calendar accordingly. So you have a high level and the detail.
Yeah, so basically in our PCF control, it's like that. I booked Daniel for my project for the next 2 months or so with in total 60 hours. When he does what in the next months for the 60 hours, basically at this point I don't care, and I think that's pretty similar to the scenario here. So I can assign the resource to my project and then just give it an amount of time and a period of time for how long and how much I want to book him or her. And at the end, the resource basically decides what is more priority, what they need to work on a daily basis. But I still have that assignment, and the person has still that work to do. Yeah, so I think that's pretty there.
Yeah.
I mean, I would also say that this is also out of the box. So I can have my team member, and this creates the requirement. So the resource requirement for the schedule board. This defines the project start and end date. And then I can say like, okay, I want to book Manuel with 20 hours. So the 20 hours will belong from start to end of the complete project runtime. So Manuel is free when he wants to pick the work. So this will also be out of the box in project operations working.
Yep. No, that makes sense. It's nice. Cool. Yeah, thanks for that. We have a separate question here. Is that I have a team of consultants, 100 consultants, and I need to plan their work in 8-hour intervals. How many resources do I need to handle that? Resource managers do I need to handle that in project operations?
I think this sounds like a math problem.
It's back to primary school.
Is there a guy with melons or so?
Matt, I think this is a trick question for Matt.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was odd. Okay, cool.
I was thinking like the scheduling optimization engine.
Yeah, that would be.
So it's machine learning based. I give my priorities and the setup of the intervals, and the automation is doing it for me.
There you go, problem solved. No resource managers.
Answer is like a half.
This is what I mentioned before. To keep it as simple, the more detail you enter into your planning, and to more complex it's getting in keep it in sync with the real life finally. So and I think we need to wait for what you mentioned, Daniel. When the contours are available, like the schedule API, that we can trigger it, then it's much easier to solve such requirements finally. Currently, it would be pretty hard because it's locked down and not able to, or not available to access it easily.
Yeah, for one of our customers as well, it was not so easy way, but yeah, this was a way that we implemented was when they had tasks in the system and they assigned a named resource to them, they wanted them to be automatically assigned onto the task between the start date and end date of the task on the schedule board. I said it was not an easy way. We wrote a plugin as the named resource came in. We just picked those hours, split it equally between the number of days and then assign them. And the resources could go by themselves, hover over it, right click, edit it and say, I'm not going to be working 4 hours, 5 hours each day. I will work according to my availability. That is how it could also be achieved. But you have to write a plugin for achieving that automation.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Very interesting. So yeah, we have another question here. Will there be an upgrade path from PSA to PO non-stock full deployment? I heard that only the light deployment migration will be supported. Also, is there a migration to PO full deployment feasible? To do that with a consultant/citizen developer. The F&O site seems quite daunting to learn on your own.
I
Right.
guess,
So,
oh, go ahead, Andy.
okay, thanks. So yeah, that's actually a really good question, and that's something that I've been getting a few times in the past few weeks actually. So the upgrade path that we will have in September, October will be for PSA v3 to the light deployment, and that's the to projops light deployment. So projops version 4 on Dataverse, and that's the only at the moment the only upgrade path that is public. The upgrade from PSA version 3 or an existing project operations light deployment to the integrated scenario is not officially released. There's actually no word about that just yet. So there's at the moment the answer is unfortunately no to that. There's no official word about it, but it's definitely, you know, it would make sense for them to make it because it's obviously something that customers are looking into. Now, if we look at the kind of like the second part of the question, migration from PO full deployment, is it feasible for a consultant citizen developer? The finance and operations side is definitely something that I would recommend any customer engages a finance and operations partner with who has experience in finance and operations, simply because it's not, you know, if you think of the integrated scenario, it's never just project operations. When we think of the integrated scenario, there's always a need for that financial part, for that accounting part, you know, your chart of accounts, your general ledger and all that stuff. So it's actually usually more geared towards implementing the features of finance first and project operations later, because those finance parts are really the core of your business that, you know, that keep your business running and keep your books in order and revenue in your revenue in your account. So to the second part, I'd say possibly, but I'd say unlikely. You will want a finance and operations partner for that part.
Yeah,
it's if you try to learn it by yourself with learning portals, it's extremely hard from understanding to come into the topic and to make really a full and working configuration. It's great if you set it up. If you follow the guides, you will be able to create an F&O instance. You will be able to create or to install the CE site with project iterations, and you will be able to set up the due rights. So at the end, these parts are there. You follow the guides, but it's only step by step. You're not really getting into the topic. Why am I performing this step? You only know, okay, the result is okay, but why I have done this? So the understanding point is quite important there. Because as Antti mentioned, you need to rely on the data you generate in the background. Because otherwise you will face some trouble in the future. I would really strongly recommend to have at least for the FNO side to have external support or internal support from people who are really familiar with that environment and can support you. The project duration side, if you follow the more or less the out-of-the-box processes where only the base setup configuration is needed to be made, is, from my point of view, quite easy. So there are good guidance available in the internet to start from scratch without many configurations. This is pretty well possible. To have the full power of the system available, what can be achieved of the system, this is quite more complex, and you need support there as well, which point you into the right direction which points can be targeted or should be targeted, and from which points you should keep the fingers away.
That's a good way of putting it. Keep the fingers away. Cool. Thanks for your input all. I don't think we have any further questions or comments here. That looks all good from our side, and no other questions from the audience. So I'd like to thank everyone for your time this afternoon. That was a great chat and some interesting insights into the project operations world. I'd like to thank you all for your time. Everyone in attendance, Sebastian, Daniel, Antti, Kuldeep, and Manuel. That was a good discussion. And before we leave, there's a couple of areas I'd like to point the attendees to if they'd like to find more about project operations in general. So today we just had a sort of brief discussion around some of the benefits of project operations and how you can use it potentially in your business, and how these guys have been working with the product in the past. If you'd like to find more out about project operations, then you can request a demo from us from our website, where we would have a discussion with you and can walk you through project operations, potentially in a tailored manner, depending on your requirements. So if there's anything that piqued your interest today, then feel free to request a demo from us or the project operations platform. You can also subscribe to our website for news and events, so any other further discussions that we're having or any other events we're putting on, feel free to subscribe to that, and you'll get all those updates as and when we launch them. And thanks again for attending. So thanks guys for the discussion, and thank everyone else for turning up today and listening to us talk about project operations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Cheers all.
For having us.
Have a good evening. Cheers.
Have a nice day. Bye.